Parental controls are available on your student's device through the screen time setting in Settings. To enable this, all you need to do is go into Settings on your child's device and look for Screen Time. Scroll down, find it, and click on the tab. You're going to click on Turn on Screen Time next, and then Continue. From here, you're going to select that this is my child's device. This might be an iPhone or an iPad, but for the sake of school, you'll be selecting this is my child's iPad. You have the option here to set downtime. You can set a start and end time for your student's device to be locked and for them to request your permission to access it. So you might like to set the start time at an appropriate time for your student to not have access to their device. For example, you might change that to 8:30 at night, so the device will lock at 8:30 at night and the screen time passcode will be required to unlock it. And you might have the end of the downtime at 7 o'clock, so the student's device becomes accessible again at 7 o'clock. You have the option to add app limits. We're going to do this a little later, so just click on Not Now for now because we want to do individual app limits. Information about content and privacy. You can also set content and privacy restrictions, so you can click through Continue. You're going to be asked to set a screen time passcode. It's really important at this point that you create a passcode that will be required to allow more time or to make changes to screen time settings. It's important that this screen time passcode is different to your student's passcode to get into their iPad, and that it's a passcode that only you know and that your student doesn't know. So don't set something that your student would guess because it's a passcode that you use regularly in your household. You can then set a screen time passcode recovery. It's important here that you have this go to your Apple ID and not to your student's Apple ID, as they can use this function to turn screen time off down the track. It will then set screen time. We have a video a little later that's going to go through different functions within screen time. This video talks about specifically app limits. So you can scroll down and select app limits. Once you're in app limits, you'll be prompted again for the screen time passcode. This is the unique passcode that you set. It's not the device's passcode, it is the screen time passcode that you set, and again should be unique to you only. You can select entire categories. However, we don't recommend selecting entire categories, as sometimes the app makers don't categorize their apps appropriately, and an educational app might actually sit under, say, games or entertainment. There is an arrow beside each of the app categories, and so you can go in and select individuals. For example, if we select social networking, you can see that Snapchat, Facebook, Messages, FaceTime, Instagram, social networking apps do sit within this. You can go through and set individual app limits. So you could say, my student can use Snapchat for 30 minutes a day, Facebook for 30 minutes a day, or you could select the entire category of social media, knowing that there's no educational apps in there, and set 30 minutes of social networking in total for the entire day. A reminder here that most social networking platforms do have a minimum age requirement. You can also go into, say, games and set limits on games. You might find here that it's best to set it as individual. So, for example here, where Pokemon Shuffle or Jurassic World is selected, actually setting, say, 10 or 5 or 15 minutes only on those apps, because sometimes educational tools that we use are categorized under games. You can then go through and set app limits for each of the different categories. One thing to be aware of is that TikTok actually falls under the creativity category. So like I said before, sometimes app makers do categorize their apps into different categories. So it is worth opening up each of the categories to see what sits within that. Keep in mind that throughout the school day, we do prefer that students aren't using non-educational apps. And so if you keep your screen time low on those apps, when they're at home and it's requesting for the screen time passcode and you want to give permission, you can do that at that point in time.